Hey folks, welcome back to another episode of the Change Physician Podcast. This is your host, Dr. Kevin Kukara, with my co-host, Dr. Melissa Cady, and a returning guest, Dr. Michael Woo-Ming. And Dr. Woo-Ming, we're going to be talking about all sorts of things that relate to sales and marketing and entrepreneurship, because in our first episode, we got to hear your physician journey and kind of the impact that entrepreneurship and moving into the sales and marketing and kind of developing your side businesses and how that impacted both those side businesses with educational projects and information projects, but also with your clinics that you are running as well. So with this, let's just kind of dive into a little bit about what marketing is in general, or how would you define marketing for someone who's not clear on what that concept or means?
Oh gosh, a nice general question, softball question. Well, I think most people know what marketing is, but there are different types of marketing. Basically, it's a way of communication where you can get somebody to know more about what you have to offer. In most cases, your business, your products and services, and it's basically just general communication out into the world. And there's different types of marketing. There's online marketing, there's offline marketing, there's different avenues from just online marketing we could talk about. Social media is now the big one that everybody's talking about. I think the one thing that I want to share with your audience is the importance of marketing. We probably all have heard the phrase that if you want to make money, you need to spend money, right? And usually what that comes down to is in terms of marketing. So you could be the best surgeon. Let's say you were top of the class and you're the best surgeon to the world, but the one who markets their services the best is always going to be more successful in terms of getting more patients than the most skilled surgeon. And life's not fair, but that's pretty much what it is. We all know that there are doctors out there who are probably a little bit more famous than you or I. Maybe not Melissa, but we've got the Dr. Phils of the world, right? Or the Dr. Oz's of the world. And why are they well known? Is because they know marketing and understand marketing, and they put themselves out there.
No, I think that is a great introduction to it. And I love how you emphasize this. It's not the best surgeon or best physician who wins. It's really the best marketer of the physician or surgeon who wins. And so that to me, things it's really important for physicians to know that. But what would you say to a physician who's like, well, I just work for the hospital and this is not something that I have to think about. Do you think that they still should have some understanding of marketing in general? Or do you think that if you're an employed physician, it's not important?
Well, I think we really have got a wake-up call in that as someone who owned marketing companies, so I worked with medical marketing companies. I had my own medical marketing company, and we specifically focused on one avenue of medical marketing. Was called reputation management, that you're pretty familiar with. So if you've ever Googled yourself, and if you've never Googled yourself, then you're lying to yourself, because we all have, right? We want to know what has been said about us. We want to know what the world thinks about or what comes up. And inevitably, a patient review will generally come up for the most part, whether it's on something like Yelp or the different doctor review sites that are out there already, Health Grades, etc. And the thing is that if you don't know how to market, the world kind of markets it for you. So whether you have your own cash-based service, certainly marketing is important. But if you're a doctor in a hospital and you're serving patients, you're going to get reviewed as well. And so what comes up on the internet is going to be a reflection of you, like it or not. So what you see on there, if you don't like what you see, let's say somebody had a bad review because, let's say, you were late to your appointment, okay? Is that a true reflection of you as a doctor? Probably not, right? But if you start getting a lot of these over time, that's what people are going to see. And of course, everybody wants to, have a good reputation, an excellent reputation out there. And so that's why, even if you are not, have your own cash-based practice, you still have other factors that it's important for you to market. What your employer thinks about you, that could have an impact in terms of any raises that are going to be coming up, or discipline that's going to be coming up. So in my marketing company, we focused on reputation management and just telling doctors that what is being said about you has importance in not only your career, but your life as well, because not only your patient sees it, family members, friends, etc. And that's why it's important to market yourself, because let's be honest, no one's going to do it for you.
Yeah. You know, it's a good reminder that whether you want to be part of social media or be online or not, that you are acquiring some kind of reputation online, whether you're looking at it or not, and or you're, you know, creating kind of a brand for yourself, even if you're not doing it intentionally on your own. And so, you know, it is good to kind of survey the land and get an idea of what is being passively branded about you versus like you actively branding yourself or trying to put yourself out there intentionally on the internet. I guess kind of a little bit of a tangent, if people are finding that there's stuff that it really doesn't resonate with their real character, or with, you know, maybe an angry patient for some unrelated hospital bill that has nothing to do with the physician and whatnot, is there, are there services, and I know they're out there, but have you found that you've had to direct physicians to places where they can kind of scrub the internet, so to speak, so they can clear that, or you find that it's pretty difficult for physicians to do that?
Well, that's one of the reasons why I'm not actively doing this. So we used to do this, you know, we're talking 10 years ago, and it was a lot easier. There's things that are known as like, you know, reverse search engines, going in and pushing down bad results on the internet. Now, it was a lot easier back then. It's much more difficult. And certainly you'll find some companies who say that they can do it, and maybe they can, but I do know it's very, very difficult. You know, I remember getting a call from a doctor who said, "Hey, I've got some really bad stuff on the internet. Can you push it down?" And you know, he told us a little bit what it's all about. But then when I'm looking at he's going to be indicted for some bad things, like in a few months, there's only so much that I'm going to be able to do here.
Right.
So yeah, there are certainly different companies out there. Obviously, and this is probably a cop-out, don't put yourself in positions where you're going to have really bad stuff on the internet for the first place. And that makes it a lot easier. But, you know, but there are some simple things. It's if you find something that, you know, let's say there's a YouTube video about you that's not getting a lot of, you know, traffic, you know, you can put other types of videos that kind of push that stuff down. You know, when you get that your name is in like, you know, the USA Today or the Wall Street Journal, you know, these sites have got big traffic sites, that's a little bit more difficult you know, to push down.
And that's a good point though, because you know, the key for preventing a bad message is not to do the stuff that would be associated with a bad message in the first place, right? I love that. Don't do things that are going to get indicted. But I think for the vast majority of physicians, you kind of worry about a bad physician review. And so what I'm kind of hearing you say is in the past, it was a little bit easier to kind of push that stuff down. But I'm kind of wondering, with the age of kind of internet on our fingertips and social media as a marketing tool, and as Melissa kind of talked about, each of us is an individual brand in of ourselves, that nobody else other than ourselves is going to be, you know, the hospital doesn't necessarily care about you. The hospital cares about the hospital, but the physician, if you care about your reputation and your career, you kind of have to have at least a little bit of awareness there. So it would seem to me that marketing could be a tool to not necessarily fight off, but to drown out those bad reviews. Because if you saw, oh, I have 1 or 2 bad reviews, then you could market to your patients for good reviews, like and ask them. And people may not think of that as a type of marketing, but, you know, approaching your patients and asking for good testimonials and asking for reviews would be, to me, another type of marketing. What do you think about that?
Oh, for sure. I mean, just as our definition, it's a way of communication, whether it's you are producing the content yourself, and I'm lumping in reviews as under content, or someone else is doing it. It's all going to be helpful. And here's the thing. You're going to get a bad review. You know, it's going to happen. As someone who's ran a business for, you know, a physical business. You know, I have my own cash practice, number of cash practices. You know, it's going to be very difficult for you to get 300 5-star reviews. And I've seen patients who say, you know, I actually don't trust those reviews because those are often fake or artificially generated. They actually enjoyed reading the 1 or 2-star reviews because they were actually more, had the importance of how did you respond to those reviews? And she liked the way that I responded to, you know, some of the 1 or 2-star reviews. Of course, we do our best what we can to help them, but you know, I think in one case, this lady was mad because we didn't stay, you know, an hour afterwards to accommodate her needs because she was an hour late to her appointment. Okay, so simple things like that. But you know, of course, that's my fault, right? So it's the way that we responded is really helped influence her in deciding for me to be her doctor.
Yeah, I think that kind of. Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, so then as basic steps, then let's just, because I'm kind of thinking on this a bunch of different levels, but if you're, say you're an individual physician in practice, maybe in an employed model, what would be the first steps that you would recommend for them to kind of have a marketing mindset about themselves as, you know, me, the doctor, my own business, even though I'm an employed model? What would you think the first step for them would be?
The first step would probably just be a general audit of your name. You know, look up your name on the search engines. You know, Google's the big kahuna. That's one that most ever use. But you can also look on Bing and see what else is coming up. Same thing, you know, the different things, what's coming up on social media. Is your name coming up on Twitter? You know, there's a search engine on Twitter. There's, you know, what's coming up on Facebook, Instagram. What is actually coming up? And if you put in your name, you'll notice that most of the sites that I mentioned come up on Google, right? So your Twitter. So that would be the first thing, to see what's come up. And then what you want to do is for your name to start, you know, getting those social media sites that are under your name. So, you know, Twitter, you know, there's a Mike Woo-Ming. I have that on Twitter, on Instagram, the different social, you want to claim those. You don't want, you know, someone else to be claiming it. It's your name. If you can have a domain name with your name, I have MikeWooming.com or drmikewoming.com. So start claiming those, even if you don't think you're going to use it. The last thing you want to do is, you know, depending on what's going to happen, is someone else that you don't have control over it claiming these for you. So we see this a lot with celebrities, right? Where they have to get on Twitter and say, you know, the real Dr. Dre or the real Kim Kardashian. I know, Kevin, you're a big fan of these folks, but you know, they have their Twitter profiles and they have to start claiming these, even if you're not going to be using them, because hey, it's your name, right? That's the first thing that people are going to look up. But as I mentioned, that's what are coming up onto Google. So the first thing is to do an audit, and the second thing is to start claiming these sites.
Yeah. You know, I was thinking earlier when you were talking about how you responded to, you know, maybe the 1 stars or 2 stars. It really, I think, reinforces the idea about good communication and not the silence, not the, you know, back away from it and not deal with it. I mean, there shows some level of, finesse and integrity to be able to deal with those challenges. So I think that's a big component, obviously, of direct marketing is good communication. And, you know, Kevin's really great at copy and writing great emails. And so I think to myself about, you know, you said something about spending money to make money and advertising and marketing. But wouldn't you say something that I find physicians I've talked to that are trying to figure out how to market to their region to get more patients, I don't think they realize just how just giving value based on just educating maybe on the things that you repeat over and over and over and over and over again, that you create little snippets, whether it's in emails or little videos. How would you encourage physicians on that front as far as giving value as a form of direct marketing?
Yeah, that's a good question. There's one thing I want to address before I get into it. I like what you said about addressing, giving value back to the patients, because as someone who's worked with I had in my marketing company, I had over 150 accounts, so 150 doctors that me and my staff had to deal with, and them communicating nicely to the patient usually wasn't their first initial step. They wanted to talk about the patient. It was usually, how dare they talk about me like this? This unfair, and they're just like venting to me or my staff, and I'm going to sue them. And I let them get it out of their system, and it's a common human response, right? We don't feel the same way they are. They're using a public forum like a Yelp and talking bad about us, and that's what you don't want to do as a doctor, because oftentimes if you get a bad review, the first thing I tell them is let it sit, go to sleep, and then address it the next day. And then this is good for like any type of argument, in my opinion. But we get angry, we don't like the review. So, but that's a common problem that I often see with doctors is we get angry, and that can often like make it 10 times worse, because then they'll respond and communicate in a not so nice direction that just opens up the floodgates, right? But back to your question about using different marketing. So was it more about, it was your question about how to use different types of video or different types of email, or how does direct marketing correspond to that?
Like, how would you value that? Like, how important would you think that is for physicians or clinicians to do that for potential clients or their current clients or whatever?
But
I think it is 100%. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. 100% true. And we can talk about the direct marketing, because I know Kevin really wants to get into this, but the classic way that direct marketing or direct marketing uses is copywriting, which is just a way of communication, using written communication to help, I'll use the word persuade people in the right direction. I actually had written something on that. Actually, I don't have it with me, but it was basically the definition of using copywriting to help influence, persuade writing to inspire people to take action. I think that was the best definition that I can get, and hopefully, in this case, action for them to become a patient of ours. And one thing that I've learned in using direct marketing is the importance of copywriting, and usually that comes in the form of a letter. And the reason why this is so important is because back in the day, before there was a time, I tell my kids this, there was a time before we had internet, he doesn't believe me, but where we used to communicate through what's known as the U.S. Postal Service, right? So they would have businesses back in the day where they would write letters to prospects, and we still get it these days. We'll get something, let's say from, I'll get something, and I hate to throw out this word, but like the AMA or something like that, and it's a letter. We get letter right now. We're in the political time of year, right? So we're getting all of these asking for donations from these different politicians. They come in the form of a letter, and the reason why that's important is because when you get a letter, what do we think of when we're getting a letter? It's like, it's coming from a family member, a friend, right? It's not when my sister is communicating, well, now she's using text, but when we were using letters, right? I was with my, back in the day when I was in a long distance relationship with my now wife, we would write letters to each other and we would cherish getting letters. And so in the mail, they understood that people cherish this letter writing, and copywriting is just a form of that. And so when you're communicating, get back to your question, when you're communicating to prospects, or when I'm communicating, things about my practice and why I would like them to become I would like to become their doctor, is I write it in the form of a letter, because it really has that communication that we're writing to a friend or family member. When I write emails, I tell my students that it's like writing to your mom, like if you're recommending something, if you're, let's say, affiliate marketing, you say, write to your mom or your friend. You're not hitting them over the head with, buy now and click this and using all these kind of crazy tactics. It starts with just communicating in what we've learned as a kid, right? Writing letters to Santa Claus. I'm getting this is nice. This call is getting a nice friendly feeling here. I'm getting this little thinking about Santa Claus and politics. I don't know, but it is an important skill to have, for sure.
And I do think that gets kind of lost in the shuffle when through medical school training and everything else, because we do have so much professional communication and you have charting and all these things. And I think people forget, though, when you're communicating, whether it's writing verbally, in the visit, through your marketing, it has to be personable. You can be professional and personable, but the best communication, if you're trying to move someone, is personal communication. And I do think sometimes as physicians, we tend to lose that because we think, well, we have to say, they call them the 25-cent words and the 50-cent words and make it super, super hard. And that's how to demonstrate my gravitas as a physician. This will demonstrate my professionality. But if you're not personable in writing it in such a way that your patients can understand you, that entire communication has now become pretty worthless in a lot of ways, shape, or form. So I loved how you kind of brought up that person, being able to write to your mom with your.
Well, yeah. Well, Kevin, if my mom's asking me how I'm doing, do you think I'm going to put it in the form of a soap note? How you doing, son? Well, subjectively, I'm feeling a little bit tired for the last 3 days, a little fatigued. Probably not.
I've been suffering from dyspnea from all the smoke from the fires that are coming nearby.
That's right.
It's giving me palpitations, and I haven't been eating. My board has been going crazy. Like whatever.
Right. So true.
Well, you got to appeal to the emotion. I mean, as I say, the elephant. I mean, you got to appeal to people's. It can't just be talking brainy stuff. It's got to be an emotional component that you're tapping into that they really don't even realize. It's kind of, I don't want to call it covert, but it's just, you're appealing to the things that can actually move them.
Right. And another thing that my mentor would teach me, and this may sound kind of cliche to some extent, but most people are bored.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just from COVID, but in general. When you're getting an email, what's going to draw your attention? And that's something when we talk about copywriting. It's the emotion that you talked about, but something that's coming up. Let's say you're going to be promoting a course, or you're going to be having a grand opening, or if you're going to be doing a special. There's ways that you can use the written word to, excite you. There's a book out there, I think it's called Words That Sell. It's a book that I had for years, and it just goes over different ways that different words can elicit excitement, elicit an emotion, and that's a skill that I've used in copywriting, not only in my medical businesses but my non-medical businesses as well, because it's universal. We're all kind of we all go through the days. We get this routine, what we're doing, we're checking our email, and this is our fifth Zoom call of the day, right? But if there's something out there that maybe can brighten somebody's day, reading an email, oh, look, there's something that's going on, if you can have that skill to, again, using that definition is influence them to take some type of action. Copywriting is an easy way of learning how to do it. Now, it's not easy to master, but it can certainly put you in the right direction.
And I'm thinking about that again from kind of all the little things that we've talked about so far. We've talked about the fact that you could be the best at whatever it is, but if you're not, people aren't aware that you're the best, which the only way that occurs is through some sort of marketing, then it's not going to matter, really. And then Melissa had commented earlier about value. And then how do we, demonstrating value is also a form of marketing, because if you're known for producing good results, again, people have to be aware of those good results. And so they have to be talking about your good results. That's a form of marketing. But then I'm going back to the employed physician who may be thinking, well, I still don't see why this is important to me. But we've also talked about reputation management. And so I think back whenever anybody goes to get an appointment, and particularly if you're with a large healthcare system, they almost always send you some form letter afterward asking you for something like, would you rate this visit? Blah, 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 blah. And I read those and they just make me cringe because they're so badly written and they're just so horrendous. They're almost, the only way you want to fill them out is if you're so mad at your doctor. That's, you'll fill out those Prescani things. But I'm thinking, like, if you're in your own practice, one thing that you may consider doing is simply writing a friendly letter to your patient saying, I hope that you enjoyed your visit with me today. I hope that you found value. You got the things that you needed out of this. If you wouldn't mind, I would love a referral, or you could rate us on blah, blah, blah website. And that would be a really simple thing. That would be a really easy to start marketing tool that any physician can do, because now you're at least taking control of your reputation and you're increasing awareness of that reputation by doing a basic follow-up letter that you could even hand out at the end of the appointment. So I think this is a really important topic, no matter where you practice. To understand this communication, the importance of good communication. We're going to call that marketing, but it's really good communication is just super key.
Yeah, and just to use the example that you gave, and just as someone who owns my own practice, we don't have a big marketing budget, but I used a little bit of copywriting to get them to turn in the reviews. So what you gave was you said you were bored, rate us for 5 stars. There's no incentive. And one of the things that's kind of the cornerstone, right, in copywriting we learned, it's always about WIIFM. What's in it for me? So what I wrote in my little email, just a few sentences, is I wanted them to know what's in it for them. And one of the reasons that I say, hey, thank you for this visit. We loved having you here. If you wouldn't mind, we're a small business. We don't have a large marketing budget. Our business grows just from word of mouth. If you had a great experience, would you mind sharing it with others? And the reason why what's in it for them is that keeps our costs low, because I'm not spending thousands of dollars on, big billboard ads, right? I'm using word of mouth. So we talked about, Melissa, about just communication. It's bringing them back to this level. I'm not some big CEO telling you that, just fill this out, and I'm giving them an incentive. They're saying, hey, yeah, that's right. And they're not going to raise my rates. They're very affordable. I'll do this. It's going to help them. And it's something where, yeah, this makes sense. So I think we got I don't have the measurements, but I think we get a little bit more reviews than the average person just by using a little bit of copywriting to give them incentive to fill those forms out.
Yeah, I like that sense of showing that you care and enough about the experience, and it's that whole know, like, and trust you kind of response that you tailor it in a way that shows that you do care about how they experience their visit or whatever your services are. And there is a sense of, people wanting to do good or do good, do well by you, and help that out. As we know, word of mouth is pretty powerful when it gets magnified. So yeah, I think that trusting you and showing that you care makes them feel like maybe they can trust you a little more.
just giving them some transparency.
Yeah.
Well, in the way that you phrased that, I really like the way that you kind of phrased it. If you enjoyed it, we're not a big marketing. We'd really appreciate you referring or writing a review, because now if they've had a good experience, i.e. the value that we were talking about earlier, the what's in it for them is they feel good because now they're supporting. I'm supporting you. It's almost as you're offering from a place of vulnerability, saying I could really use your help. and people do like to help others, particularly if they like them. So I just really like that phrase that you were using in there.
Yeah, I mean, again, another thing that we learned in marketing, people in general want to belong to something that's um, with a cause that's greater than themselves, right? We will always want to, whether it's being spirituality, whether it's an organization that we admire, a movement, whatsoever. Most in general, we're tribal. We want to belong and feel that our voice is going to the greater good.
Yeah, I think that even highlights this sense of meaning. You know, when you're writing something, giving people that sense of meaning, but also you kind of alluded to it earlier in this sense of maybe a sense of urgency, like this something coming up, giving them a date, giving them, you know, anytime you see something that's novel from an email versus like the typical routine stuff, or there's a sense of a deadline or a date or a challenge or something of those things seem to draw people.
Yeah, we call those triggers, psychological triggers. Others might have some other definitions of it. Some might think they're like, you know, sleazy tactics, but the reason why is, you know, urgency, scarcity, those things work.
Yeah.
And that always makes me laugh because I always go back before I even knew anything about marketing. I remember I was listening to an interview, and the guy in this interview was a business podcast, said at some point you just have to write the copy. And I wrote it down in my little journal, and I had a little box like check into, because I was like, what the hell does this even mean? Like, write the copy. Because my exposure, like I think a lot of people of us, is we think about sales and we think about marketing as your kind of sleazy used car salesman or whatever, but it permeates everything. And when people say, well, these might be, you know, these little triggers won't work on me, I'm like, okay, so you never, you know, Black Friday sales don't work for you? You never look for Amazon Day? Those are all, you know, psychological triggers that large companies are using. And and I think some of the best marketing out there that is the stuff that you're not even aware of, because you're already acting on it.
Yep.
And I know it's so fascinating, the world of marketing and the importance of it and the importance of good communication. So
I'm curious, Kevin. So like, I don't know how you felt. Once I understood marketing and specifically copywriting, it almost was like the Matrix to me. If you remember the movie The Matrix, you know, they find out that, you know, there's a whole different world, and you think the world is this way, and then you realize that copywriting is not something that somebody cooked up 5 years ago. It's been around for, you know, hundreds of years, right? And these same types of things that even where we're seeing on the internet, you know, probably not as prevalent as it was, but back, you know, in let's say early 2000s, a lot of ways that people were getting you to purchase products online outside of Amazon or eBay was these long form sales letters. And they were basically just the modern equivalent of these letters that I had mentioned earlier in the interview, that we would get in the mail. This like, dear so-and-so, and you would have a headline, a sub-headline, and then these little triggers in this long sales letter. I know we've all seen them, but the reason why they were so prevalent is because they worked. Because people would read these letters, and then at the end, you know, they see the PS and they say, oh, I'm going to go in, I'm going to order it. I know I bought stuff from it. But those same type of sales letters are still prevalent today, except they may be in the form of like a video. So, and I know we'll get into this, but there's a, you know, the one of the another big foundations in copywriting is AIDA or AIDA, which is the format is that all of these types of ways that we sell goes in the form of AIDA, or attention, interest, desire, action. And the sales letters have it the same way, the videos have it the same way, and it follows that format. And we can talk more about that if you like, but they haven't gone away. If you've ever been on an infomercial, have you ever watched an infomercial, which we all have, it follows the same format: attention, interest, desire, action.
Yeah, I think that might be a good one to finish on, Kevin. If you want to talk deeper into that, or what do you think, Kevin?
No, well, return to the Matrix moment, it totally was a Matrix moment. I mean, it absolutely blew my mind when, you know, you have a question. Well, what does it mean to write the copy? And then you start pulling it up. Holy crap. It was amazing. And I think the thing that was, you know, not only has this stuff been working for 100+ years, and you could go back to the old books where they were written 100+ years ago, and the same, they're still useful now because the principles are basically good communication. And the things, you know, I think about Publishers Clearinghouse. You remember, I don't even think they mailed those anymore, but the Publishers Clearinghouse, you know, and they always had the winner or whatever.
With the giant checks.
With the giant checks. And they used to have this one letter that you had to like hunt through the thing and find these little stamps and stick it on the thing to do whatever. And it was, I mean, it was basically getting you engaged in this super big mailer to send it in. And I would sit with my mom and do that, right? And it was like, we're gonna win, you know. And we hunted all these things, and it was, you know, people, well, that's sleazy. Well, I actually have fond memories of doing that with my mother, and we did win a ruby crystal pendant. Was probably worth about $2
Whoa!
Yeah, we did. We're big winners. But it's amazing. And the other part about that, though, from this kind of Matrix moment, is if you even look at you know, if you're a physician and you're thinking persuasion and marketing and copywriting, we have nothing to do with it. Well, motivational interviewing is a huge part of practices now because we've recognized that information doesn't change behavior. And I'd love to hear you, Mike, but the first time I started looking at motivational interviewing, I was like, this is sales. These guys, they're basically taking good sales techniques, which sales kind of comes off of the marketing arm when you're looking at action. I was like, this is basically a sales approach. So it's everywhere, you know.
Lots of psychology.
Lots of psychology.
Well, yeah, I mean, again, not going back to this AIDA thing, but so basically A is attention, right? So if you're trying to get people's attention, the first one is attention. And so in these sales letters, just as in like doing an interview, you have to get their attention. Usually it's in the form of a headline. You'll see a headline. So if I'm having a conference that I'm want physicians to go to, I'll say, hey, you know, physicians, here is this is probably, you know, how would you like to come to a conference where you can learn more about creating passive income for yourself, which will give you more time for your family and friends, and finally become the boss that you've always dreamed of. Probably horrible. This is a headline, but that's what you're doing. You're trying to give them attention, meaning that there is a specific group out there that you're trying to reach. And the I is the interest. Why do they want to know this? Well, I just gave you reasons why you want to get more passive income. You're gonna be home more. You're gonna be home with your kids. We're talking about different benefits. So I can see the same thing when you're using this type, when you're talking about interviewing. Why would they want to, when you're interviewing somebody, you want to get their attention. You want to show them this is why, you know, I'm interested in helping you. I see what you've got a problem I can help you with. And the interest is because I've done something similar. So let's say if I'm having this conference on passive income, I've built passive income, I tell them about my story. So when I'm talking and I'm interviewing, I want to learn more. I'm a doctor and I've had patients who I've treated very similarly. I want to know if this is going to be right for you. And then the D is desire and the action. And we talk about, this is why you want to quit smoking for our patient. This is why you want to attend my conference. And A is the action. This is why I want you to attend. I want you to have a call of action. I want you to come to my conference. In the same spirit, I want you to fill in this prescription, or I want you to see this, I want you to do this type of treatment. It's not all, comparing apples to apples, but it's the same thing with psychology. We're just using communication to persuade people. I did a talk on sales for physicians. I say, if you think of sales as just another form of persuasion, or just if you want to take it one step further, another form of helping, it doesn't feel as sleazy. People are saying, oh, I don't want to be into sales. Well, think of it as a form of persuasion. Do you want to help more people? You can use marketing, you can use these tactics in copywriting to help persuade more people. Now, whether you decide to use this for good versus evil, that's up to you. But the reason why is because they work. I guess to one extent, where you see like, why are cults? Why do cults exist? Because that's the taking persuasion to the nth degree, when people against their will they're using persuasion, but they use some of these tactics that we talk about.
You just made me think of the very important part of all of this is that, you hear about the avatar and who you're talking to. It's really important to know who your audience is, and whether you're talking about extreme examples or not, that you need to know where those people are coming from and what their struggles are, what they're frustrated with. And in order for you to effectively design the right kind of copy or communication to actually appeal to them.
Well, and that comes back actually to being able to apply good marketing and communication skills in your patient visit, right? Because if you don't know who your patient is, you're not going to be able to frame the message that you're trying to explain, to get them to take action, ideally for something that's beneficial to them. That's not going to happen if you don't really know who it is that you're talking to. And the other part about this, we've kind of gone full circle here, because we talked early on, you could be the best physician, best surgeon, but if you're not a good marketer, nobody is going to know about you. And if you are not being able to generate a persuasive argument in your patient care visits, you're really not going to have the impact that you could have as a physician in your practice, and to do the good work with that. So I think everybody needs to learn about a little marketing here.
I think Melissa hit on the head. If you don't like the word marketing, substitute with the word become a better communicator. Mm-hmm. And we all communicate different ways. For myself, the way that I tend to communicate is kind of that telling the story. There are different. I would, for lack of a better term, like genres in marketing, or I guess memes might be a more modern word. One type of meme in marketing is what's known as the reluctant hero, which means basically is the person who comes from simple means to like who overcame some type of obstacle just to slay the dragon, and is humble but becomes a hero. And people love that story. We've seen that, from David and Goliath. We've seen this throughout the years. We all see movies based upon that type of concept. And the reason why movies, which is another form, uses marketing, is because these types of tropes, that's what the word I was thinking of, these type of tropes exist because we've all seen these type of things. So if you use that in your communication, when I use it for doctor to patient, I'll talk about it. Treatment. I have one treatment that I use, which is we have a clinic where we do hormone treatment, and I tell them a story about, if I'm trying to say if this treatment is right for them, I tell them, my wife, the reason why I started this clinic was because my wife was having a lot of hormone issues, and then she tried this treatment and she overcame all of these different symptoms, overcoming obstacles. And, so the proverbial slaying the dragon, and now her life is in a better place because of this. And it's, I hate to use numbers, but numbers are an important part of marketing. My conversion rate is very high because this story really helps bridge the gap with these communication. Now, there are different ways I could have communicated. Like I just showed her, here's 10 Medline studies, here, read it. Figure it out on your own. Do the research, right? People like to say, or I could say, there are different ways that we could communicate, or everybody else on the block has had the same treatment. Why aren't you? I could use, peer pressure to get someone. But for myself, and everybody is a bit different. I love storytelling. I think storytelling is one of the most powerful forms of marketing. Mm-hmm. And whether you're using it, one-on-one, or using it in an email, or using it in a video, what does it do? It really draws attention. It stops people what they're doing, and they want to listen to the story. And especially if you use something where, like what comes next, that's another form of marketing where you're like, people want to complete what's going to happen, right? This is why we binge episodes on Netflix, right? For those who have it, which is about everybody. I can remember I'll be on a weekend and I'm like on episode 1, and then next thing I know, it's like, episode 5, because they always end in a cliffhanger. Well, that's another form of communication marketing, right? We're trying to fill in. We want to know what happens to our hero. We want to know what's going to happen. So again, I'm kind of going off into tangents, but this is where marketing, and Kevin is laughing.
I just got this picture of doing that in a patient care visit, right? So you end them on a cliffhanger, and then next time we'll reveal your results when you come back.
Well, they do that, right?
No, it's just
they also they do that on the 11 o'clock news, right? These are this common household item that's in your pantry right now. Studies have shown can cause cancer. Yeah. What is it? We'll tell you at 11 o'clock tonight.
Elicit fear.
That's right, which is another form of psychological trigger.
Yes, most definitely. Kevin, any other questions?
No, I think we could talk about this for hours, at least. I'd love to talk about it for hours. It's interesting, but thank you very much, Mike, for coming on. I really appreciate your expertise in this important, really an important topic for physicians to be more aware of. And I think we've covered this whole gamut, from reputation management to, referrals in your practice to getting those 5-star reviews, or just responding adequately to 1-star reviews. And in this day and age, I think we are all, the business of you as the individual physician is absolutely critical, because it's not going to go away. And I can just see this amplifying. So thank you for coming on and giving us some hints and strategies when it comes to some basic marketing for physicians out there.
Yeah. Again, thanks you guys for having me. And again, I know there's some doctors who are watching this or listening to this, who's saying, I kind of get it, but I don't know if it's something that's going to be important to me. I would invite them next time that they check their mail to see how they're being marketed to. When you get a letter from that organization that they want you to join for $79 a year, look at the advertising that you're getting. Oftentimes you'll find it in the form of a letter, and then you'll find out, hey, this is what we were talking about. I'm being marketed to. It's not going to make you a better physician. I think it's going to make you more an educated individual, because you can see how powerful that these forms of persuasion can be. So there's something to take a look at. And again, it's like the Matrix. I mean, it was like, oh my goodness, I thought my university was on the up and up. Look, they're trying to get me to donate more money. How are they doing it? They're using marketing.
Yeah. I love that, and thank you again. I think if you're reading those things, even when I'm looking at an email or I'm triggered to maybe go buy something, I actually sometimes think, okay, why is it I'm being triggered right now? What is it? Is it I just want a good deal? Yeah. Like I just love the idea of a good deal, and or don't want to miss out. Just it's good for people to reflect on that, and I encourage the listeners to be more mindful of how they're impacted by the words that they're reading or that they're hearing from people. So thank you again. For those of you out there, this is the Change Physician Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Melissa Cady, with my co-host, Dr. Kevin Cuccaro, and our awesome returning guest, Dr. Michael Woo-Ming. We'll see you next time.
Take care, folks.
Thanks.